You're listening because you want to get right to the essential information fast. So this deep dive, we're jumping straight into the latest developments surrounding the really tragic death of 11-year-old Adrianna Younge in Guyana. We're focusing today on reports that just came out May 1st, 2025.
Yeah, and our goal here isn't just to skim the headlines. We really want to understand, what the police probe is actually finding and, crucially, what consequences are unfolding for those involved and how society is reacting to this awful event.
Okay, let's dive right into those police investigation updates then. It sounds like there's finally some action on accountability within the force. We're hearing 2 officers, a corporal and a constable. They've been relieved of their duties.
That's right. And it is significant because it points towards, an official acknowledgement of failures early on. Failures in how Adrianna Younge's initial disappearance at the Doubleday Hotel was handled, before she was found in the pool. Relieving them of duty suggests an internal finding that things weren't done properly at the start.
And it's not just impacting the lower ranks, is it? Commander Khalil Mandel's name keeps coming up, too.
Correct. He's still on administrative leave, which tells you the investigation is ongoing and still looking into the command structure. They're trying to get the full picture.
Okay. And what about the owner of the hotel, the Doubleday Hotel? He was arrested initially.
Yes, he was. He's actually been released now because the statutory time limit for holding someone without charge ran out. But, and this is important, it doesn't mean he's in the clear. Far from it. He has to report daily to the police, and he's been blacklisted from leaving Guyana, so still very much part of the active investigation.
It feels like this whole investigation has been, troubled from the start, especially regarding the initial information released.
Absolutely. I mean, the Guyana police force itself came out and publicly stated their first report was, and I quote, very inaccurate. That's quite an admission.
Very inaccurate. Wow. Okay. And part of that inaccuracy traces back to a civilian staff member
right
at the command center.
Yes, exactly. And this highlights how even small mistakes can have huge consequences. She apparently admitted entering the wrong date when she was checking CCTV footage near the hotel. Because of that date error, she wrongly reported seeing someone matching Adrianna's description leaving with a man, which, sent the initial search down the wrong path, potentially.
And it wasn't just that one mistake. There was also a sergeant involved from the Special Constabulary Unit.
Correct. He added to the confusion by claiming an anonymous mail caller told him he'd seen Adrianna leaving in a specific vehicle, a black Rumum.
Okay, so did they find this anonymous caller?
They did track him down, and interestingly, it turns out he actually knew the sergeant. The caller admitted he'd made a call, about 10 minutes long. Yeah, call logs confirmed that. But he wasn't reporting a direct sighting. He was just relaying stuff he'd overheard people talking about Adrianna leaving in this black Rumum. So basically, secondhand gossip presented as eyewitness info.
So it's like a chain reaction of errors. The wrong date, hearsay, reported as fact. You can understand why the police admitted their initial report was very inaccurate. It really paints a picture of, chaos in those early hours.
It does. And you can see why this admission, combined with the errors themselves, really stoked public anger, which definitely spilled over into the discussions at the Labor Day rally that followed. It raises questions, about procedure, about oversight within the force.
Right. Let's talk about that Labor Day rally, because this tragedy clearly resonated far beyond just the police investigation itself.
Oh, absolutely. Labor Day in Guyana usually focuses on workers' rights, that kind of thing. But this year, Adrianna Younge's death was a major, major topic. It shows how deeply this affected the whole community.
I heard the turnout was lower than usual, though.
Yeah, reports suggest several unions decided not to participate. They cited safety concerns, apparently, because of some recent unrest. That hesitation itself says something about the general mood in the country, doesn't it? A kind of unease.
But those who did march, especially the union leaders, they had some really strong words, particularly connecting Adrianna's death to broader issues. Norris Witter.
Yes, the president of the Guyana Trades Union Congress, he didn't mince words. He expressed disappointment about the low turnout, but praised those who came. And then he made this pretty pointed comment about some other union leaders supposedly dining lavishly at State House while workers are suffering, suggesting a real disconnect, between the leadership and the base.
And he explicitly framed Adrianna's death as more than just a tragedy, almost like a call to action.
He did. He said her death should be a catalyst for a great revolution. Strong language. He really urged people to remember her name, highlighting the immense grief and the feeling of injustice.
He was also very critical of the government's role, wasn't he?
Very direct. Witter basically said the state failed Adrianna, failed to protect her, failed to deploy resources properly when she went missing. And he went further, expressing no confidence in the current Irfan Ali administration. He talked about violations of workers' rights, ignoring unions, calling it bad governance.
And with elections on the horizon, those comments definitely sounded political.
Oh, for sure. Witter called for changing the status quo, urging workers to campaign for new faces in high places. He stressed needing action, not just endless talk, to get results and change the leadership.
And Lincoln Lewis, the general secretary, he weighed in too.
Yes, Lewis picked up on similar themes. He called for genuine and inclusionary democracy, which the Constitution guarantees.
Okay.
He argued it's just not happening under the current government. He also spoke really powerfully about needing to break down barriers like pettiness, tribalism, division, and the poisonous games of political mischief.
Focusing on workers' dignity as well.
Absolutely. Lewis emphasized the need for all workers to get dignity, fair pay, legal protection. He pointed to specific cases where collective bargaining deals or even court rulings favoring workers were just ignored. His point was clear. A nation can't move forward if its workers aren't treated like partners. And he also made a broader point about democracy, that minorities matter and that justice and human rights are essential for any real development.
So you've got these two parallel tracks, really. On one hand, the detailed police work, trying to figure out exactly what happened to Adrianna, looking for negligence, getting forensics done internationally.
That's right. That part is focused on the specific event, on accountability within the system, getting the facts straight. Sending samples to Mount Sinai in New York shows they're serious about the forensic side, trying to leave no stone unturned there.
And then running alongside that, you have the reaction we saw at the Labor Day rally, taking this specific awful tragedy and using it to amplify these much bigger concerns about how the country is run, about protecting citizens, about workers' rights.
Precisely. The union leaders used Adrianna's death as a stark example of what they see as systemic failures. Failures in governance, in protecting vulnerable people. So the calls for justice become much broader than just this one case. They morph into demands for wider government accountability, a better deal for workers, more respect for rights generally.
It's quite striking, isn't it, how one terrible event can ripple outwards like this. From forensic details to calls for, well, revolution almost.
It really is. It shows how these personal tragedies can sometimes cut right through to expose deeper issues in a society. They become symbols, catalysts for conversations that maybe needed to happen anyway about how things are working or not working.
Okay, so let's quickly recap key developments.
Yeah.
Police officers disciplined, commander still on leave, hotel owner restricted. The investigation is pushing forward, now with international DNA analysis involved. And Adrianna Younge's death casts a huge shadow over the Labor Day rally, sparking intense criticism of the government and demands for systemic change.
That sums it up well. It's a complex picture, grappling with immense loss and its far-reaching consequences.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how an individual tragedy like this connects to institutional accountability, or the lack thereof, and these much wider societal anxieties. So maybe the question to leave you with is, what does this whole situation tell us about that complex interplay between personal loss, institutional responsibility, and public pressure? And what does it suggest about the real power of public grief and anger to actually demand and maybe even drive change? Definitely something to keep pondering as this story develops.